My husband said I was too dumb every day, so I drained our accounts, packed my bags, and vanished before sunrise. He spent years tearing me down like it was some kind of hobby. Always had a comment, always made me feel small. Said I was nothing, said I'd fall apart without him. And yeah, I stayed. I stayed quiet, played along, waited. Then one day, his life fell apart, lost his job. Everything started slipping through his fingers. That's when I acted, took every dollar I could, packed up, and left. No yelling, no goodbye, just gone. Now, he's broke, jobless, and living at his mum's house, like some grown man who forgot how to adult. And the kicker, he calls me, not once, not twice, 30 times a day. Yeah, 30. Wild, right? I met Robert at Omal's, that scrappy little bar, downtown where everyone goes to chill after work on Fridays. You know the kind, sticky floors, cheap drinks, loud music. I was there with a few co-workers from my insurance job. I do admin work, not fancy, but it's steady, and I know my way around. Then Robert walked in, like he owned the place. Confident in that bold, attention-grabbing way, he handed me a White Claw and started talking about his middle management job at Midwest Manufacturing like it was the coolest thing ever. And somehow, in that moment, it kind of was, the way he looked at me, like I was the only one there, like he chose me, and I let myself believe that meant something. Fast forward 2 years. We got married. Not everyone was thrilled. Kira especially. She's been my best friend since high school and didn't hide how fast she thought it was moving. I didn't want to hear it though. I thought I had it all figured out, but now I can see the red flags were everywhere. Like how he wanted us to combine our money right away. Said, that's what married people do. Or when he'd joke, good thing I handle the money. You'd spend it all at Target and then laugh that laugh that made everyone else laugh, too. So I smiled, even though it stung every time, because it didn't really feel like a joke, not deep down. At first, I didn't even notice the jokes were getting mean. It was slow, like turning up the heat in water, without realizing you're in it. After we joined our bank accounts, things started to shift. I'd buy groceries, just basic stuff, and he'd say, $7 for organic milk. This is why I checked the statements. Like that was funny. When I got a small raise at work, I felt good, proud even, but he just said, well, you're not exactly management material, but I guess it's cute they tossed you a bone. That one hurt, still does honestly. And when I told him I was thinking about going for a promotion, he gave me that look, half smile, half disappointment, and said, come on honey, that's not really your thing. Plus, I make enough for both of us, remember, but every insult came with a smile. I'm just teasing. You know I love you, and I believed him. I really did, because growing up, that's what I saw. My parents were the same. My dad always joked about my mom, her cooking, her hobbies, even how she danced around the house, and she'd laugh it off, or pretend, too. So I thought, okay, this is what love looks like. It started small, just little shifts, nothing huge, but enough to notice if you were paying attention. 2 years ago, Robert began coming home, later than usual. First it was 7, instead of 6, then 8. Sometimes he smelled like beer. Other times, it was that strong, cheap cologne they give away at the mall, the kind that hits you in the face. I'd ask him gently, nothing pushy, just, hey, everything okay? He'd smile like I was being ridiculous. Just drinks with the guys. Or, client meeting ran late. Then he'd say stuff like, you're cute when you get all suspicious. Maybe stick to counting the liqueur cans, babe. Like I was just there to manage the fridge. Things changed in the bedroom too. He stopped trying, unless he was drunk. And even then, it felt like he wasn't really there. When I tried, he'd throw out these little comments. Not full-on insults, just stuff that cut deep, but sounded casual. Like, you've got that little pooch now. And he'd poke my stomach like it was funny. Or, your boobs changed since you put on weight, like he was just making observations. But here's the truth. I'm 5'6" and 145 pounds. Same as when we met. It wasn't about the number. It was how he made me feel. Like I wasn't good enough. Like I didn't deserve to be touched. unless I earned it somehow. So yeah, I started pulling back. And of course, he used that too. This is why men cheat, he said one day. Just tossed it out there while scrolling Instagram, like it was no big deal. When their wives stopped putting out, he never came right out and said he cheated. But the way he talked, the little hints he dropped like they didn't mean anything, it was enough to make me question everything. And honestly, I think that was the whole point. It was last summer when I first noticed something wasn't right. Our savings account looked low, like it had been slowly draining for a while. I brought it up casually, just in passing, thinking there'd be a simple reason. Robert exploded. "Yes, checking up on me now?" he snapped. "Don't you trust me? I'm the one bringing in real money here." Then he stormed out, slamming the door so hard, it knocked one of those cheap but cute wall prints off the wall. The crash echoed. I just stood there, frozen. That night, I couldn't sleep. He was snoring like everything was normal. I stared at the ceiling, then finally grabbed my phone and opened our banking app, and there it was. Withdrawals. Not huge, but regular. $200 here, $300 there. Always on Fridays. Always the same time. Little by little, it added up. Over a few months, it was thousands. Gone. The next day at work, I told Oliver. He sits next to me in the office. He's into finance. Always talking about stocks, crypto, and all that. Half the time I don't understand him, but he's smart and nice. When I told him, he raised his eyebrows and said, "That sounds sketchy. You should start saving on your own, just in case." In case of what? I asked. Like I didn't know. But I did. Deep down, I already knew. He didn't answer, just gave me a look. And I felt silly for even asking. So I did it. I opened a Capital, one account under my personal email, the one Robert didn't know about. Set up a small direct deposit, just $100 from each paycheck. Not enough to raise flags. He only ever checked the joint account anyway. When things at the office got busy, I volunteered for overtime. Told Robert I was helping out the team. But really, I was stashing away every extra dollar. It wasn't much. Not yet, but it was mine. It was right around Christmas, when things really started to fall apart. Robert came home from his company holiday party, in one of his moods, jaw tight, shoulders tense, already halfway to angry. He'd been passed over for another promotion. "Again, Sebastian," he muttered, tossing his keys down hard. "Probably kissed the VP's ass all year. That's how guys like that get ahead. Climb their way up. You're not promotion material." I just stood there, in the kitchen, hands still wet from rinsing out a mug, and something clicked. Not fast, like a sudden shock, more like a slow, creeping fog. It wasn't just bad luck. Robert wasn't being overlooked. He wasn't the victim. He was average, mediocre even. At home, the cracks had been showing for a while, but this was at work. His pride, his proof that he was smarter, better, the real success in the relationship. He'd built his whole identity on being the provider, the guy who had it all figured out, the one who made the money and called the shots. But standing there, I finally saw it. He wasn't that guy. Not at home, not at work, not anywhere. And yeah, I felt guilty for thinking it. It felt wrong, like I was turning on him. But once that thought came, it stayed, and I couldn't unsee it. January came in cold, and so did he. The comments started up again, only now they were sharper, more personal. He picked on my cooking first. "Not everyone can make edible pasta," he said, pushing his plate around like a bored kid. Then he moved on to my friends. "Kira's still single because she's impossible to please," he'd say, giving me a look, like he wasn't really talking about her. "Even my family wasn't safe. Your sister's kids are so loud. I guess loud runs in your family," said with a smirk, like it was just a joke. He always acted like he was teasing, just kidding around. But I stopped laughing, and somewhere in the middle of all that silence, I started writing things down. I opened the notes app on my phone. Nothing fancy, just a place to log what he said, the date, the time, the exact words. I didn't plan to show it to anyone. I didn't even know why I was doing it at first. Maybe I just needed to see it for myself, to prove it was real, that I wasn't being too sensitive or making it all up in my head. At first, it felt small, but soon, it became a routine, and eventually, It felt like a kind of protection, something solid, proof I could hold on to, because gaslighting only works if you let it. And I wasn't letting it anymore. February was when the cracks really started to show. One night, he fell asleep on the couch, laptop open, some YouTube video playing in the background. I don't know why I looked. Maybe instinct. Maybe all those little red flags adding up. But I clicked over to his email. That's when I saw them. Credit card statements. Not from our usual Visa. This was a Capital One card I'd never even heard of. The emails were hidden in a folder. Neat. Tucked away, but not enough. I opened one, then another. The charges stood out. Places called Lucky Star Entertainment and VIP Room. Names I didn't know, so I looked them up. Strip clubs. All close to his. Office. All late at night, and happening often enough to be a habit. I just sat there, staring at the screen in the dark. He was behind me, snoring like nothing was wrong, and I didn't wake him up, didn't yell, didn't cry. I just closed the laptop and made a decision. The next morning, I logged into my secret account and doubled what I was saving, from $100 to $200 every paycheck. I started picking up extra shifts again, offered to help out on weekends. On my lunch breaks, I began checking Zillow. Apartments in areas I liked. Safe, close to work, near a grocery store. I didn't know exactly when I'd leave, but I knew I would. And this time, I had a plan. March came with warnings. People at Robert's job were talking about layoffs. You could feel the tension in him. He came home more stressed. Every day. Popped open more beers. His jokes turned mean. If I lose my job, you'll finally have to learn what real work feels like, he said one night, opening another Miller Lite. I just stood there, quietly doing the math in my head, figuring out how many more paychecks I needed before I could leave for good. Then, last week, it happened. I was at work when my phone lit up. His name on the screen. I stepped outside to answer. His voice was tight and angry. They let me go, he said. Sebastian's team got to stay. Probably a diversity hire. My heart started racing. But it wasn't fear. It was adrenaline. I realized right then, this was it. The moment I'd been preparing for. Don't bother making dinner, he said, before hanging up. I'm going out with the guys. Like it was just another bad day. He came home around 2 a.m., smelling like liquor, bumping into walls, stumbling through the hallway. I stayed still in bed, breathing slow, pretending to be asleep. He muttered as he moved around the room, maybe to himself, maybe to me. Ungrateful wives. No one respects a man who gives everything. I didn't move. I let the moment pass, like a storm I refused to step into, because by then, I was already gone. The next morning, he didn't wake up until noon. I was already up, showered, dressed, calm. While he snored off his hangover, I sat at the kitchen table, quietly moving money, a little at a time, from our joint savings into the account he didn't know about. No big moves, just quiet clicks and passwords. By the time he stumbled in, eyes red, face sour, I already knew what I was going to do. He didn't say good morning, didn't ask how I was. Just stood there, arms crossed. We're moving in with my parents until I find a new job, he said, like it was already decided, like I didn't have a say. Then he added, you'll need to quit your little job. Not like it makes a difference anyway. I looked at him and nodded, said nothing, because what was the point? He didn't know about the apartment, the one I applied for 2 weeks ago, the one I got approved for yesterday, the one where my keys would be waiting tomorrow, and he never would. What? No opinion, he sneered, eyes narrow, voice dripping with that same tired tone I'd heard 100 times. Of course not. You never have anything useful to say. And right then, something in me snapped. 8 years. 8 years of little jabs, mean jokes, and quiet put-downs. All of it hit me at once, like puzzle pieces finally clicking together. I saw it clearly. Not just the things he said, but who he really was. I looked at him. Really looked. A completely average man. Hair thinning, belly pushing out under a stretched t-shirt. A man who spent years trying to make me feel small, like I was lucky just to be with him. Then I spoke, calm, steady, not angry, just done. Actually, I said, I do have an opinion. And I told him I was leaving, that I'd been planning this for months, that I knew about the strip clubs, the hidden credit card, the money he quietly drained, everything he thought he got away with. I laid it out in less than a minute. I watched his face glitch like bad Wi-Fi. First confused, then shocked, then furious, and finally scared. Real fear. You could see it. "You can't leave," he stammered. "You're nothing without me. Who's gonna want you? You don't even know how to manage money." But here's the thing. I already had. I didn't say another word, just smiled, walked to the hall closet, and grabbed the suitcase I'd packed weeks ago. I hadn't touched it since, but it was ready, and so was I. Then I walked out. That was 3 days ago. Now I'm sitting on the floor of my new apartment, writing this. It's nothing fancy, just a small one-bedroom near the park. Quiet, but the good kind. The kind that feels like peace, not punishment. No TV yet. I eat dinner on the floor. My clothes are still in the suitcase. But this place? It's mine. Robert's called 37 times today. Texted 19. The voicemails bounce between crying and yelling. Typical. Turns out he figured it out, that I moved the savings. I didn't hide it, didn't steal it, just moved it. My name was on the account too. It was always legal. He just never thought I had the guts to do it. Now he's back at his mom's. No job, no money, no wife, just sitting in his old bedroom, trying to process the fact that he lost something he thought he owned. He can live in that silence. As for me, I'll take this kind. First update. First off, thank you. Really, every message and comment on my last post. I read them all, some more than once, especially at night when things get quiet and my mind tries to twist the past into something better than it was. It's been 1 week since I left, and honestly, the first thing I felt wasn't freedom or strength. It was panic because I forgot my phone charger. Not kidding. That first night, I laid on the floor of my new apartment, phone at 12%, stress at 100%, watching YouTube videos about organizing small spaces with dollar store bins. Not glamorous, not life-changing, but it was mine. The apartment. Well, it's an apartment. The bathroom fan clicks like it's trying to send a message. The kid next door plays violin every morning at 7 a.m. Not badly, just loud. But even with the noise and the scuffed floors, it's still the first place. I've lived in that doesn't talk down to me. Yesterday, I went to Target and bought a shower curtain. It's white with little tassels, soft and simple. Robert would have hated it. He would have made that face, you know the one, and called it basic white girl stuff. Then he'd say something like, "You can't even pick a shower curtain without help." But this time, I didn't ask. I just bought it. And when I stood, barefoot on the cold tile, holding that cheap tension rod in place, hanging it up all by myself, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Like maybe, for once, I was finally choosing me. Speaking of Robert, 127 calls in 7 days. I counted, not because I wanted to, but because the number hit me hard when I saw it in my call log. 89 texts. 15 voicemails. At first, it was what you'd expect. "Baby, I'm sorry. Please come home." Then came the usual rage. "You ungrateful bitch. You're nothing without me." The latest voicemail, 2 full minutes of just breathing. Slow, heavy, like something straight out of a horror movie. I haven't responded. Not once. But I won't lie. It's getting to me. Every time my phone buzzes, my stomach turns. Even the silence feels heavy now. And then yesterday happened. Flora, my ex-mother-in-law, showed up at my work. No warning. Tears running down her face. Mascara everywhere. She looked at me like I was the villain in some sad family drama. She said, "Robert hasn't eaten, hasn't showered, just sits there, mumbling about how he lost everything. Says he's not the same anymore." And yeah, for a second, I felt it. Guilt. It rose up fast, like smoke in my chest, until she said this. "He's sorry about the strip clubs, honey. Men just need attention sometimes when their wives are, you know," and just like that, the guilt disappeared. I didn't tell her about the gambling. I left out the receipts I found in his email, online poker sites, random usernames, shady deposits. I kept quiet, Didn't bring up the $23,000 in credit card debt either, or the payday loans. I was too busy digging through statements, trying to understand just how bad it was, to explain it all to someone who still sees her son as the victim. She probably still thinks I left him at his lowest point, that I walked out just because he lost his job, as if that was the real story. But the strange part, it's the small things, the quiet routines, making coffee for one, grocery shopping without anyone else's opinion. I realized last week I actually hate the bread he always made us buy. Dense, dry, full of seeds. I went along with it for years, just like I did with so many other things. Now, I buy the kind I like. I take my time in the store, because now I can. Coming home to silence used to feel weird. Now it feels like peace. There's no list of things I didn't do right, no comments about the laundry, or why the dishwasher isn't empty yet. Still, I catch myself bracing for it, waiting for his voice, his judgment, permission I don't need anymore. Kira's been amazing. She shows up with takeout, no questions, helps move furniture, even if we're terrible at it. She doesn't flinch when I cry in the laundry aisle, because I don't know which detergent to buy, because he always chose it, because grief sneaks in when you least expect it, and she just stands there. No fixing, no advice, just there. That's what real friendship looks like. Yesterday, I completely broke down in Target, right there in the storage aisle. The trigger, hangers. I stood frozen between plastic and velvet, black, beige, grey, some with clips, some without, and suddenly, it wasn't about hangers anymore. It was about all the choices I never got to make, and how even the smallest one now felt like too much. And I just broke, cried, hard, full body, can't breathe, ugly crying, over hangers, peak dignity. Kira didn't even blink. She stepped in, wrapped her arms around me, and held on while I sobbed next to a shelf of collapsible laundry bins. She didn't say, "It's okay," or "Don't cry." She didn't try to fix it. She was just there. I kept saying, I don't know which ones to pick. Like it actually mattered, but maybe it did. Maybe in that moment, it meant everything. Because picking hangers wasn't really about hangers. It was about finally choosing for myself. For the first time in a long, long time. The money stuff, it's a mess. Robert finally realized I moved most of the savings. And now he's telling a whole new story, saying I stole from him, that I took everything. What he doesn't say is that my name was on those accounts too, or that I only took what I'd earned, every overtime shift, every holiday I worked, every skipped lunch I didn't complain about. He's changing the story, but I've got proof, real receipts. And then, this caught me off guard. Sebastian messaged me on Facebook. Yep, that's Sebastian, the one who got the promotion Robert thought he deserved. The one Robert always trashed in his rants. He messaged to say congrats, said he'd heard bits of what happened, and honestly, he was glad. Turns out Robert had been bad-mouthing him for months, using slurs, trashing him in meetings, trying to ruin his work. So no, Robert didn't lose his job because of downsizing. It wasn't some office politics thing. It was him. He wrecked his own career. He tore it down with his own hands. And when it all fell apart, he just looked around for someone to blame, and I was the closest target. Last night, I ordered pizza with pineapple. Robert used to say, pineapple on pizza was for people with no taste. He'd wrinkle his nose, like the idea offended him. But I got it anyway. I ate it on my new couch, the cheap one he would have hated. It doesn't match anything, and sinks a little when you sit too long, but it's mine. I watched that trashy reality show he claimed was rotting my brain, wore the soft Target leggings he called lazy person clothes, and the pizza. It tasted like freedom. A little lonely, kind of cold by the time I was done, but still mine. Every single bite was mine. I know this post is kind of all over the place, but honestly, so am I. Some moments I feel strong, like I did the hard thing and finally saved myself. Other times I spiral. I start to wonder if maybe I am the villain in someone else's version of this story. This morning, I stood in front of the mirror for 20 minutes, just staring, trying to see what he always said he saw. The stupid, worthless woman he used to tear down so easily. The one he chipped away at until I couldn't tell if his voice was mine, but all I saw was me, tired, a little worn out, eyes hollow from not sleeping great, but still here, still standing. He's still at his mum's house, still unemployed, still calling. The voicemails haven't stopped, but now he's trying something new. Now his friends' wives are messaging me, saying they're worried that I'm breaking apart a family, that maybe I should give him another chance, because he's not himself, and marriage is hard. And sure, marriage is hard, but this wasn't marriage. This was losing myself, little by little, until there was barely anything left. So while they try to protect the version of him they want to believe in, I'm over here learning to build something better, something real, something that's mine. Second update, I didn't plan to post again so soon, but after today, I need to let this out. It started off normal. I ordered Thai food on DoorDash from that place down the street I'd been meaning to try. I was working from home while the internet guy wrapped up, just a regular Tuesday, nothing unusual. Then the doorbell rang. I didn't think twice. I just walked over and opened it, but it wasn't DoorDash. It was Robert, standing there like a ghost, who didn't realize he didn't belong here anymore. He was holding a cheap bouquet, the kind from the grocery store, plastic still on, price, sticker still stuck to the side. He looked thinner, tired, unshaven, wearing that old college hoodie, the one with the faded U and frayed sleeves. And for a split second, just one, I almost forgot. My body wanted to move, to step aside, like muscle memory, like the old version of me was still in there somewhere. But I didn't move. I just looked at him, and then I closed the door. My hands were shaking so badly, I missed the deadbolt on the first try. Took 2 tries, but I locked it. He didn't knock again. He didn't yell or call. He just stood there for a few seconds. Then he walked away. I sat on the floor for a long time after that. Didn't even touch the Thai food, but I didn't open the door. And maybe that's what healing looks like sometimes. Just not opening the door. Babe, come on, he said through the door. I just want to talk. I've changed. I've been going to therapy. Narrator note, he hasn't. Flora told Kira he refused. Said therapy was a waste of time. Said he wasn't the one who needed help. I didn't say a word, just sat there on the floor, back against the door, breathing slow, listening as he went through all his usual lines. I'm sorry about everything. You're overreacting. Remember how good we were. You're being dramatic. I miss you. You're nothing without me. I love you. You ungrateful bitch. 45 minutes. I stayed quiet through all of it, let every word pass through the wood, like smoke I wasn't going to breathe in. My neighbor, the sweet older woman across the hall, who waters my plants when I'm working late, called the cops. Bless her. By the time they arrived, he was gone, but not before sliding a letter under the door. It's still sitting on the counter, unopened, just a plain piece of paper in a plain envelope. But it feels like a bomb, like if I open it, something might explode. So I don't. Not yet. The police took a report. They told me to call if he comes back. Suggested I get cameras. I already ordered them on Amazon. Thanks to everyone in the comments who recommended it. It feels strange taking safety advice from internet strangers. But honestly, you've been more helpful than people I've known for years. Turns out, Robert got my address from Flora. She asked Kira's sister where I'd moved. Said she was worried about me. That hurt at first. But now, I'm not even mad. I think she's just another person caught in Robert's version of the truth. She really believes he lost everything. Believes he is the victim, not the one, who burned everything down and handed me the matches. After the police left, I had a panic attack in the bathroom. Nothing dramatic. No crying on the floor or yelling. I just sat on the toilet lid, scrolling TikTok, trying to breathe like normal. My fingers felt numb. My jaw was locked. I didn't even realize I was crying until the tears hit my phone screen. Good times. I called off work for the rest of the day. My boss was kind. More than I expected. She said, "Take what you need." Later, she told me, quietly, that she went through something similar a few years back. And I don't know, it's strange. Once you start telling your story, other people start telling theirs. Like we've all been living through the same storm, just in different houses, thinking no one else hears the thunder. Some updates. I changed all my passwords. Again, finally got my own Netflix account. No more Robert's watch list. full of finance bros and half-watched war movies. I ordered a Ring doorbell, started real therapy, not the kind Robert claimed to be doing while secretly Googling how to make your wife regret leaving. Oh, and I adopted a cat. Her name is Potato. She's 5 pounds of pure judgment, watches everything I do like she's keeping a report. I respect it. The strange part, life just keeps going. The dishwasher still needs to be emptied. The plants still need water. Potato still acts like her litter box is a 5-alarm emergency, more urgency than I ever gave my own mental health. The world doesn't stop just because your ex melts down on your doorstep. Also, the DoorDash driver finally showed up. The food was cold. I still ate it. Healing doesn't mean you're suddenly too good for soggy pad thai. And the letter, still on the counter. Part of me wants to burn it. Part of me wants to open it. Most of me just wants to pretend none of this happened. But it did, and I'm still here. Third update. So, this happened. I was at Whole Foods yesterday, treating myself to that overpriced but oddly comforting mac and cheese from the hot bar. Don't judge. It was a long week, and I earned it. Then I bumped carts with someone. Sebastian. Yes, that's Sebastian. The one Robert blamed for everything. The guy he said stole his promotion, ruined his career, got him fired. You know that awkward moment when you see someone you sort of know, but you're not sure if you should say hi. Now imagine that times 1,000. Because this wasn't just anyone. This was Robert's old co-worker and so-called enemy. I froze, was ready to give a quick, awkward smile and disappear into the fancy cheese aisle. But Sebastian, he smiled. For real. Asked how I was. Not like small talk, but like he actually cared. We ended up grabbing coffee at the Starbucks inside the store, sat at one of those tiny, wobbly tables next to a rack of reusable mugs. And what he told me, yeah, it explained a lot. Robert wasn't fired because of downsizing, and it wasn't because Sebastian took his promotion. That was just the story he told. Everyone, including me. But the truth, it's way worse. Sebastian told me Robert was caught faking expense reports. Those client meetings at strip clubs, he listed them as business dinners. The expensive team lunches. Turns out they were just him, alone at a sports bar, gambling, on games, and charging it all to the company. But here's what shocked me the most. The company tried to help him. They gave him a chance, told him he could pay the money back, take a demotion, and keep his job with some accountability. And what did Robert do? He snapped. Went on a full-blown rant about Sebastian, who had nothing to do with it, accused him of sabotage, started yelling, threatening people, serious threats, the kind HR can't just brush off. Sebastian even showed me the screenshots. Real messages Robert sent after he got fired. They weren't just rude, they were disturbing. Slurs, crazy accusations, threats so bad that security had to step in. So no, Robert didn't lose everything, because life was unfair. He lost it because he burned it all down himself. Then blamed the closest person, holding a lighter. Turns out, Robert had been telling people, at work, that Sebastian was sleeping with me, the wife he never trusted, even while he tried to control every part of my life. Sebastian, the man I hadn't even spoken to until yesterday. Sebastian told me gently, like he didn't want to, make it worse. Like he wasn't sure how I'd take it. I just sat there in that too bright Starbucks, holding a cup of coffee that had gone cold, while everything kept unraveling. And in that moment, something hit me. Something worse than betrayal. I didn't really know the man I married. Not the version he showed to other people. Not the one he kept hidden at home. Not the one I defended when my friends had doubts or my family asked questions. I spent 8 years married to a stranger, and the hardest part, he still thinks he knows me. Other updates. Potato has decided that 3 a.m. is her personal gym time. Full speed wall jumps, sprints across my face, and surprise landings right on my ribs. She's living her best life. I finally read the letter Robert left. Brought it to therapy first. Couldn't open it alone. It was 8 pages. 8 pages of emotional swings. Apologies in one line. Blame in the next. A highlight reel of guilt trips. Twisted facts. And you made me this way. Got the Ring camera installed after he showed up. Best money I've spent in a while. The soft chime gives me peace. Even if it's just the UPS guy dropping off cat treats and yoga blocks. Speaking of, yeah, I started yoga. Just YouTube videos in my living room. Nothing fancy. Robert used to say yoga was for people who weren't smart enough for real workouts. Told me I should do something that burns fat, not incense. I don't miss his opinions. The other night, I found an old journal while unpacking a box I shoved in the closet. It was from when Robert and I first started dating. Reading it hit hard. One entry said I was lucky he chose me. Another said I'd try harder to be good enough. There's even a page about the night I spent 3 hours making his favorite dinner after he told me I cook like someone who hates food. I read those pages in my own handwriting and barely recognize the person who wrote them. She deserved so much better, and now she's finally starting to get it. Flora called yesterday. It started the way her calls always do. Soft voice, long sighs, guilt dressed up as concern. She said Robert isn't eating, that he cries a lot, that he's not himself. Like that version ever really existed. But then she said something I didn't expect. I should have seen it sooner. He's just like his father. Turns out, Robert's dad didn't leave for a job opportunity. Like Robert always said, he left because he gambled away their savings and maxed out credit cards. In Flora's name. Sound familiar? Yeah, history repeats itself. Sometimes it even smells the same. Same cologne, same hoodie, same excuses. Just a few decades apart. I'm not angry anymore. Not really. Mostly I just feel strange. Like when you finally take off a pair of shoes. That never fit right, but you kept wearing them anyway because they looked fine on the outside. The relief is instant, but the red marks on your skin, they stay for a while. They don't disappear overnight, but eventually they fade. 3 months later, some things have changed. I can watch whatever I want without eye rolls or side comments. My grocery bill is half of what it used to be. Turns out, I don't need overpriced protein bars or 5 types of energy drinks. I sleep through the night, most nights. I bought plants. So far, they're still alive. And I've started laughing. Again, not the quiet, pretty laugh Robert liked. My real laugh. The one that snorts sometimes. Some things haven't. I still check my rearview mirror more than I should. Still tense up when my phone rings. Still say sorry for things that don't need an apology, like just existing. Still get stuck on small choices, like which laundry detergent to buy. And yes, sometimes I miss him. Not in a let's try again way. More like a go slim. Like when I saw his favorite cereal on sale, and for a second, I reached for it, then remembered. Sebastian gave me his card before we left to Whole Foods that day. Told me I could call if I ever needed anything. Not in a flirty way. He's happily married, 5 years strong, but in that kind steady way that says, I believe you. You're not crazy. You're just healing. Last update. I was at Target shopping for plastic storage bins because apparently being an adult means getting excited about matching containers. I was in the middle of comparing brands, trying to figure out which lids wouldn't snap in a week, when I heard a voice behind me. You don't want those ones. The lids crack easily. I turned around and there she was, Flora, my ex-mother-in-law, standing in the storage aisle holding a big bag of cat litter. Like this was just any other Tuesday. I froze for a second. My cart was full of single-person stuff. Frozen meals for one, a new shower curtain, that lavender sleep spray everyone on TikTok talks about. Everything in it seemed to shout, look at this life. Look how far away it is from your son. I waited for the guilt trip. The comment, the pity, but it never came. Flora just smiled. It looked tired, but kind. That cat litter you told me about. For potato, she said. I got a cat too. That was it. No drama, no questions. Just 2 women in a Target aisle, quietly moving forward from 2 versions of the same story. So yeah, this is my last update. There's no big ending, no perfect closure, just a life that finally feels like mine again. And a cat named Potato, who still thinks 3 a.m. is the perfect time to leap off the furniture, like it's her job. Turns out, Robert moved out of Flora's house last month. He's crashing on a friend's couch now, still jobless, still blaming everyone but himself himself. Flora says the story's the same. It's just playing out in a different place. Same bitterness, new walls. But Flora, she seems lighter. She told me she started therapy, joined a book club, said she's learning to set boundaries, learning how to breathe again. And you know what? I believe her. After Target, we grabbed coffee at the Starbucks. Just sat at a small table by the bakery case, drinking lattes and talking. No drama, no tears. Just two women chatting about cats, books, and how impossible it is to find storage bins that actually stack right then. As she stirred her drink with one of those little wooden sticks, she looked up and said, "I'm sorry, not just for Robert, but for me, for not seeing it, for not believing me, for holding on to a version of her son that felt easier than the truth. He's so much like his father," she said, "and I didn't want to admit it." There wasn't much else to say after that, just quiet understanding between two women who survived the same storm, one who found a way out, and one who finally stepped into the light